Welcome to the Business Insider Podcast, where we interview the top business leaders in their respective industries. Hey, what's going on, guys? Today, I'm excited to introduce a special VIP guest. We've got Brian Martin here. He is the CEO of Five0 Consulting. Brian, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, man.
Thank you for having me. It's fun to be part of this.
Absolutely. Super glad you can make it, man. As you know, I've got a bunch of questions lined up for you, and I'm sure audience is wondering, specifically what you guys do and really what the major outcomes are for your clients that work with you. So before the podcast, you'd kind of given me a brief rundown on what that looked like. If you wouldn't mind reiterating that to the audience, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, sure. So Five0 Consulting was formed because we saw an audience emerging that marketers and businesses weren't doing a very good job at understanding and connecting with. It's a time of significant demographic change in the world, and people are living longer because of longevity. They're living healthy, and also birth rates are down in many countries. And so being an American, seeing the cultural orientation always being very youth focused, and at a time where there are more people who are now going to be over 65 in America than under 18, and you realize that youth focus isn't necessarily the way to the next level of growth for many companies. In fact, for 80 years in marketing, you always said, let's go, target younger people, and that's the way to grow a franchise. And many businesses are still operating there. And for many brands, that works for them. But for more and more brands or more businesses, they're not seeing that approach be as effective. And when you realize that this over 50 population is a very wealthy population, they possess over 70% of the wealth in America. And they're spending that money in ways that are on things that are new and different and living in ways that we haven't really seen before. We decided to create Five0 Consulting to really explore that and help businesses and marketers connect with that audience better.
That's awesome, man. Now, if you were to define your superpower or the unique insight or skill that sets you apart in your space, what would it be and how has it shaped your success?
Well, it's just understanding this consumer and coming from marketing backgrounds, so we know how to do things to capture that consumer. We also have an advertising agency called Boucher Page, which is an acclaimed agency working with a lot of great brands across a lot of different age groups. But it was our work in this over 50 audience that said, this is different. And we need to understand it in ways that other people aren't just looking at it. So many of our competitors are holding companies. And so holding companies do deals with all the major tech platforms. And so they have large volumes of ad inventory. And so they're filled with a lot of young people who are effectively placing ads in all those spaces. What we're saying is this audience requires you to think differently than you do for other businesses. The data that you have to work with for people over 50 is not as robust as it is for much younger generational cohorts. So we've had to go out and do special research to really understand this audience differently because we aren't able to see it as much in those demographics. And so we're able to connect with people not just by filling boxes or filling out the ad spaces that are available through the tech platforms, but coming at them and thinking through what is the product or the service and how can that evolve to better serve them? How do we intersect them and play a role in their lives that is different and unique and can pierce the awareness and consciousness of these people? Because somebody who's 50 has been, or older, you've been around for many generations, you've gotten very savvy about how to avoid things you're not interested in. And so getting into their mind is more challenging because they've tried a lot of things, and when they know something isn't interesting to them, they just don't pay attention to it anymore. But they're also very intelligent and thoughtful people with time to explore things. So when you find something that they are passionate about, they tend to go deep on it. And how we can connect with those people on behalf of businesses and brands is what's making us different from anybody else out there.
Gotcha, man. That was an amazing explanation. So Brian, I'm curious, man. How'd you kind of get into this? What kind of inspired you to pursue your current path?
It's funny. It's like I'm a bit older. I'm in my 60s now, and seeing,
Damn, you're looking good though. I would have pegged 40s or 50s.
I got to say there's a whole segment that we have that we call obsessive optimizers, people who are healthy, work out, and people who are actually doing lots of the things that, the sense of I'm going to live as long as I can, and I'm going to live healthy, and I'm going to be able to be around at over 100
Yeah,
years old. That's a burgeoning group. And so you realize that the way this audience is living, just seeing it firsthand, you realize it's different than the way we lived when we were younger. And people don't really know it until you're in it. And so we thought, isn't it nice to have something where we can be the pioneers to say,
right.
here's a new space in the world, and let's help people navigate it better
Yeah.
and create value for businesses out of it all.
For sure, for sure. Now, through your journey, Brian, how powerful has networking been to your success? And what would you recommend other entrepreneurs do to up their game?
It's a business, no matter what you want to say, it's a business of relationships. And so knowing people, knowing how to find the person who can actually solve the problem faster, getting insights about how to go about doing something, that's everything in business in my book, or at least the generation I grew up with, that's how we did business. And you find, like, even today, like, I can send 2,000 emails to people that I don't know and get zero response. Or I can call up two friends who know somebody I'm trying to reach, get an introduction from them, and be in talking with them long before they would have ever cleared my email out of their inbox. And so it's people, business is a world of people knowing people, and that's leveraging those relationships is everything.
100%. I could definitely say thus far in my young entrepreneurial career, I wouldn't be nearly as far as I am today if it weren't for networking, shaking every hand I can, and just trying to provide value at every corner. I think a lot of people kind of underutilize genuinely try to build a relationship, as you kind of touched on, where it's like they go to these networking events and these meet these people and they're like, here's what I do. What do you think? You want to buy it? And it's like, nah, you don't, that's not how to go about it. Like, just build a genuine connection, a relationship, and it'll do the rest.
Shaking hands and giving a business card isn't a relationship. It's what happens after that, how you continue to communicate and talk to them, and when there's an opportunity, do something with it. And that's another thing about aging well is your network of friends and acquaintances. The bigger that group is, the healthier you tend to be, the longer you tend to live. It is a real cornerstone to successful longevity.
100%. Now, talk to me a little bit about AI. Obviously, this is a big topic. It's impacting a lot of different industries. How is AI impacting your industry specifically, and are you guys utilizing it?
Of course we use it. You can't not use it in today's world. And so AI is good for informing you about opportunities or understanding things faster. But the other thing that we're seeing that, because we're in a space that is fairly new and dealing with a lot of erroneous perceptions about what it's like to age, we're finding that the results that come out of some of the things in terms of AI doesn't really understand this consumer as well as we do yet, because they're dealing with so much data that's in the system that is wrong or misleading. And so we're finding AI is good for understanding the conventional thinking that applies to this audience, but it's the unconventional that is yielding the best opportunities and the best insights for us.
Yeah, 100%. Now, talk to me about one of the biggest challenges you've had to face as an entrepreneur to this point. How did you overcome it, and what is one life lesson you learned from that experience?
Oh, that's a good question. It's you're running a business, and we're an advertising agency, and that's a tough business because of AI is doing a lot of that. And when you're doing something and the challenge was, how do we grow our business as an independent agency? We're not part of a holding company. And fortunately, what we've seen is a bit of an uptick, and independent agencies are getting more attention and bringing more value to clients than the holding companies are doing. But when you see, like, where's our business going to go, we thought, okay, it's a challenging, very crowded environment being an ad agency. And so the way we resolved it was doing work and thinking about the work that we're doing for our clients, but in realizing that in doing that, that there is something that everybody seems to be missing or that they're not grasping as fully as they ought to be grasping. And so we diverted a lot of resources and effort against understanding this audience, and it has really changed our business. We've had really good response from companies who are interested in this cohort, both companies that have been in the space for a long time and want to know it better, as well as companies that are just beginning to see the value of coming into this space.
And where do you see your industry headed over the next 5 to 10 years? Obviously, it's the Wild West out there. There's a lot of changes going on. What do you see?
There are so many changes in so many ways happening in the world, politically, technologically, demographically. Um, and predicting the future is always an imprecise approach at best. But what I think the meaningful change that I think is happening to our business is that it's less about large companies that have multitude of assets and are optimized for global operation, and more independence that may be specific to a geographic market, to a
Sure.
specific industry. And I think that that's happening more and more and benefiting those who are going off on their own. And in terms of the over 50 audience, like one of the things that we're seeing that is changing their world is that so many people who are over 50 have worked their lives in a career and have made good money and have done well in that space. But now that they're at a later stage in life and have a pretty good nest egg in place, they're taking the time to say, I want to do my own something more entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
And the world of age tech startups is quite large and lots of fascinating things happening in that space. And it's technology for financial, it's technology for elder care, senior living, aging at home. And what we think is that we can help many companies who may want to evolve, large organizations who want to evolve a brand or a service, tap into that group of startups and make acquisitions that can make their brand stronger against this audience in some way. So we see ourselves participating in that age tech realm of helping people get started, but also helping them to have an exit plan in the right way for companies that see them as a strategic fit.
That's awesome, man. I love where you guys have strategically placed yourselves. Like, I feel like the niche you're in is it's great that you guys are really helping these people that are, a little bit on the older side that don't quite understand, some of the other stuff that a lot of these young entrepreneurs are doing. And on the flip side, a lot of these older entrepreneurs have way more experience and understand a lot more things than the young entrepreneurs do. So I feel like it's really cool how you guys have, placed yourselves.
Well, it's funny you say that because yes, there is a lot of evidence that says older entrepreneurs have a much higher success rate in building their business than younger people do. And I think that comes from the years of being in business and understanding, seeing things differently. But what I think you're missing is the degree to which this older audience is technologically savvy. Like,
Okay.
my grandparents were not technologically savvy, but my parents were, and I am, and my siblings are. And so it's like their perception is always that older people don't get technology. And the reality is they're as savvy as anybody we see out there.
Yeah, that's good. You can set this record straight, man. No, I think it's a matter of like, just from like the people I know in my own network, at least, I feel like it's a matter of, the old, like I do have mentors, and I feel like the biggest thing is they understand a lot of technology better than most young entrepreneurs. But I think it's when you actually get down to social media and like how funnels work and stuff like that, when you get real specific into how to actually drive revenue through social media, that's where I think there's kind of that gap where they don't fully understand how the systems work. I think outside of that, though, in the sense of like big tech, like 100%, yeah.
Yeah, totally. And in terms of social media, it's interesting because, yes, that managing that funnel requires a lot of nuances and sophistication that doesn't always exist in older consumers because they're not doing that every day like younger people are. But one of the things we found, and it's really interesting, is that getting people into that funnel is an underappreciated role in marketing. So,
Definitely.
driving performance is where so much is focused. But we found like we have a client, a place for mom, and they came to us and they wanted us to drive more through their funnel. And what we found worked for this audience was a TV campaign that at the highest level was creating the stories that were driving people into that funnel. And the first year we launched that approach, their business was up 30% in a slow growth category. And so that says, doing zigging when other people zag is a really important skill to have in business. And I think our ability and our having seen the world for as long as we have, we can identify more easily, intuitively, things that can be done that can improve performance in that funnel in ways that maybe somebody who's living in that funnel doesn't normally see. It's like seeing the forest through the trees. Sometimes you're just too close to really understand the dynamics.
100%. That definitely makes sense. So in your experience, what do you feel like is the biggest problem in your industry, and what are you guys really doing to solve for that?
The problem as it relates to our business is, the data services that capture the Nielsen's, the Simmons, the MRIs, they are great at capturing data on users or in consumers from earliest days in life up to 50. Like you can really parse that out and get good insights through there. The data quality on people over 50 is less effective and less precise. For instance, we found the generational cohorts of, boomer, Gen X, even millennials. Millennials are getting close to 50 now as well. And so we're starting to understand them in a different way. Just because you were born in those ages doesn't mean that you're going to act in the same way everybody else who was born in those agencies. That may be more true when you're younger, but as you're older, we found a question for our research of how old do you feel is yielding much better insights into that market. And so somebody who might be 70 on paper, but in reality, they feel they're living life of somebody more in their 40s or 50s, they that's a very different group than somebody who's 70 and really is 70. And
Right.
so the things they're interested, the way you connect with them, the things they will want out of a relationship are very different. And so that understanding this audience in a world where it's not so well understood is important to us.
For sure. Now, if you wanted the viewers to take away one thing from this interview, or you could impart on one final thought or idea, what would that be, Brian?
Don't underestimate the over 50 audience. It's big and it's really happening. And we
Awesome.
we've used the analogy of, there's in terms of GDP in the world, there's America's the largest globally, China's second, but the America's over 50 audience would actually be the third largest GDP in the world. And so we've said if there was like an island in the Pacific that suddenly emerged that was the over 50 audience and the third largest GDP in the world, you'd be on a plane flying out there tomorrow to go do business with them. And that's what we think that we're helping companies do, is introduce this audience and bring it to life in a way that they can build value for their businesses.
Awesome. Love that, man. And for any of our viewers out there, that want to connect, collaborate, or even work with you, what would be the best way for them to reach out?
Com. We have a network of people that we work with. It's interesting, and so just reach out to us through the website. Our information is easily accessible there. You can get to us any way you want. And one of the things we discovered as we did this, when we announced what we were doing well over last year, the response from people over 50 who were talented people who want to work with us. They don't want full-time jobs, but they want to be able to contribute, and they have extraordinary careers. So we have this network of skilled people in so many different areas of marketing and business management that we can tap into to bring in on behalf of a brand, is amazing. And so being part of that network, being part of this team, we're just having fun doing new things every day, and it's been fun for all of us.
Awesome, man. Well, guys, I'm gonna link all of Brian's stuff in the description. Definitely go check out what he's up to. He's doing an amazing job for his clients, and he's a great entrepreneur. Brian, again, thank you so much for coming on today's episode. Had a pleasure speaking with you and learning more about you and what you do.
All right. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely, me as well.